Well, the Gauteng government is teaming up with private security companies to fight crime. And this comes at the latest stats showing that there is a contact crime every 50 seconds in the country. Our reporter Hloni Mtimkulu is out on the streets of Joburg this morning, and she's finding out how Joburgers feel exactly about their safety and how vigilant they have to be. She joins me now, so let's cross to her to have this conversation. Hloni, a very warm good morning to you. It almost sounds like a rhetorical question, asking Joburgers how they feel about their safety, because we know how rampant crime is. But in as far as, them staying vigilant, the lack of quality of life because they constantly have to look over their shoulders, what are they doing to stay safe?
Yeah, Dumelo, you talk about whether Joburgers do feel safe or not. And of course, last week we were at the launch of that tactical response unit from within the JMPD that was launched by the MMC for Public Safety, Mgini, and the Mayor of Johannesburg was also at that event. And we were saying that there are already so many measures in terms of what's supposed to be combating crime within the province and within the city, between SAPS and the units that they have there. And then now with JMPD, you've got private security as well that's doing all of these things. And actually on the ground you wonder if we do feel any safer, in terms of all of these things that are there. And certainly in terms of the crime stats, you're just seeing that actually in terms of contact crimes, and I'm going to speak to someone who deals a lot with murder trends in the country, and speaking to what's happening in the province, that these numbers are actually increasing generally, across the country generally. And so, I don't know if we necessarily do feel safer or not, but I am going to bring in an independent researcher on policing and security, David Bruce. Just maybe so initially, just in terms of the security, are we generally safer in terms of, from a provincial perspective, are we generally safer? Do we feel that we are safer given all the measures that have been put in place by policing in the province and in the country?
Well, if we look at murder statistics for now, the one obvious thing is that murder in Gauteng has increased dramatically in the last 5 years, in the period from 2017-18 onwards. So that's not to say that, necessarily everyone in Gauteng is, necessarily feeling more unsafe. What is true is that murder, in terms of its incidence, tends to be concentrated in certain areas. And so, I think, there are grounds for concern about murder trends in the province.
And then I know in this policy brief that you have released, you talk about the socio-political homicides, you talk about the interpersonal homicides, and then the third one, which I'm going to get to, you talk about the crime-related homicides as well. Just in terms of those, can you maybe explain, I think the two that you mostly talk about are the interpersonal and the crime-related. How do those sort of fit into the picture of crime in the province and in general?
Well, you see, right at the moment we don't really have detailed and information on that. In fact, the information on what's kind of driving murder in Gauteng is very poor. There's various factors which are known to play a role. The one thing is the widespread availability of firearms, but that could be contributing to murders in different ways, including in kind of interpersonal disputes between people who may or may not be known to each other, and in a kind of type of a crime-related, or maybe in a kind of organized crime-related type of scenario. So, one of the things that we're just arguing for is improved analysis and of information, because we feel that with a better understanding of the crime situation, we would be far better able to respond to the crime situation in an effective way. And any effective crime strategy is in fact likely to only take shape if there is a much better analysis of what's shaping the crime situation in the country, in the province, and the country.
And I know, a lot of the time, and certainly in this also report as well, that the socio-economic aspect of it is brought up. is that the most, and I know you say that, you still did more analysis needs to be done, but is that the most common sort of reason that's usually given? Because we were earlier this year at a pop crew conference, and they talked a lot about socioeconomic factors that play into the crime situation in the country. Is that the most common, and how do you sort of address the fact that security is an issue?
Right. Well, you see, I mean, what you're asking is quite a big question, but, part of it just starts with questions about trust and respect in government and the rule of law. So, insofar as people feel and believe that government itself, is invested in proper standards and is invested in the rule of law, and that they believe that they can trust the police, and that they believe the police are trustworthy, that if they believe that the police uphold standards of integrity, then that is something in itself which promotes a sense that there is a law that people need to adhere to, that the law and government are something that are to be respected. So, in kind of understanding the kind of factors that shape these things, they are, potentially it gets quite complex. But, the one fundamental thing is just to what degree we actually believe that our government and our police services are themselves, staffed by people who respect and uphold legal standards, and that gives us then a reason to comply with those standards. But in a situation where people feel that there's a generalized disrespect for the law, including from within the state and within the police service, then you don't basically have a basis for creating a situation where people are safe.
And then maybe just lastly, I mean, we see just sort of the way that we're living now with the high walls, the security as well. Is all of that really helping? I think it goes back to the first question that I asked. Is it really helping to make us feel secure?
Well, you see, I mean, there's a difference between feelings of safety and sort of objective safety. But I mean, I think, people have, taken the steps that they feel are necessary to protect themselves. And so, objectively, these kind of types of measures often do make a difference in terms of enhancing safety. Obviously it would be preferable if we were living in a situation where there were feelings of much greater kind of mutual trust and reciprocal feelings of confidence that mutually we living in a society where we trust each other. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, David Bruce. So, Dumelo, there's a lot to say about just sort of, especially in terms of the high crime rate. Just so you know, the research that has been done by David and the Institute for Security Studies, at 45 murders per capita in the country, and the 4 provinces with the most crimes, with the most murders rather, the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, KZN, as well as, of course, Gauteng, where we are at the moment. And that report also says that it's not necessarily an impossible situation, but with the right leadership. And I think David does mention that, as well as with evidence-based methods, then there can be something that can be done. So it's not an impossible situation, even though we do certainly feel unsafe. And with all the measures that we did talk about that have been launched, that already exist as well, those can be helped if there is will to sort of make that happen, Dumelo.
Absolutely, and there have been ongoing debates, Hloni, also about the festive season coming up and knowing that crime usually around this time quite rampant. And also if the method by the Tactical Response Unit, where Mgqinichwa, with the MMC of Public Safety, launched, if the shoot-to-kill method is also effective or not, and also if it's within the law, given the frustration of many residents. So that will be an ongoing debate, I can imagine, as we try and come up with resolutions towards curbing and fighting crime. But thank you so much, colleague, for bringing this issue to the fore. Hloni Mtimkulu out for us as we also have a focus on safety, not only in Johannesburg but many parts of South Africa. We'll continue having this discussion right here on ENCA.